I'm joined by another very special guest, Dr. Ashok Gulati, the country's leading agriculture economist, joins us. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Gulati. I want to turn to you on this day because many believe that agriculture and dairying to some extent are the key sticking points for an India-US trade deal. Do you agree with that, that the key issue is India is holding firm on not accepting US conditions on lowering tariffs on agricultural products, and therefore the deal is not happening? Do you agree with the stand that the Modi government, the government of India has taken? We will not compromise when it comes to agricultural products in lowering tariffs.
Well, we should remember that we are not living in a Turkey. We are importing agricultural goods of about $37 billion last year, FY25, from the world. Almost 55 to 60% of the edible oil that you are consuming is being imported. So question that we will not allow any imports is ridiculous, because we are importing quite a few things, may not necessarily be as much from US as from many other countries. So it depends upon where our economics works. Somebody dictating and, coming to a situation where we have to buy this or that, that may not work, but then they have the right to put any tariff they want. If we want to put 50% tariff on their imports, they have the right to put another 50% tariff on our exports to them. So you have to work out what is the give and take in trade negotiations.
But is your view that that India should be open to reducing tariffs on agricultural products? You may have seen last week US Commerce Secretary Harold Lutnick repeating his criticism of India's fierce safeguards, asking why is a country of 1.4 billion people not buying one bushel of US corn, almost suggesting that India needs to lower tariffs on agricultural products. Do you agree with that broad viewpoint that we need to relook at it? Or are we looking to protect our farmers first? Is that argument working for you, that the moment we lower our tariffs, Indian farmers will be affected?
If edible oil is coming $17 billion at 10% duty, and we have slashed the import duty on cotton to zero, and if almonds can come at 13-14% duty, then the question is, why do we have 45% duty on corn, or soybean 50% or 60% on skimmed milk powder? So you do need a rationalization of import duties irrespective of the pressures from Washington. The way you have done the GST reforms, I think the import duty reforms on agriculture are overdue. We have been unduly overprotective. My feeling is 80% of our agriculture is very much competitive. To give an example, we are the largest exporter of rice in the world, but we have an import duty of 70% on rice. What is the logic?
But the fact is, let for a moment look at corn. Since the US seems to have made corn a symbol in a way of this trade war, if I may use that. At present, India neither permits the import of GM corn nor its planting by farmers here. There is a concern among Indian farmers that tomorrow, if we opened up our agriculture markets, the US would use their large production of corn and dump it on Indian markets or sell it at cheaper rates in Indian markets. Indian farmers would suffer if you brought in GM or genetically modified corn into India. So do we need to put are there certain conditions that we will have to put? You can't open up surely the entire agricultural market to America.
Sure. You have to calibrate. You can use tariff rate quotas that, okay, up to 2 million tons we can allow. We have a production of 42 million tons or so. If 2 million tons come, But the price competitiveness, we are not very much on the off track as far as prices are concerned. Even if you open up, we can be exporting many a times, and sometimes we import. So we are at the borderline of international prices. But we have a duty of 45% on corn imports. That is one part of the story. The other is the GM story. The GM story, we say we will not allow any food crops into our country which are GM. But corn is basically a feed material. More than 55% of corn being produced in the country is going for poultry feed. Another 25% is going for starch industry. So the human consumption of corn is not more than 20-25%. So BT cotton, GM, 95% in the country is GM, and that seed is being fed to the poultry or other animal feed. So, this dual standard that we can feed our own cattle and poultry through cotton seed, which is GM, but we will not allow corn, which is GM. It's not based on science, it is an ideology that we don't want. Then you say that even GM cotton will not be allowed in the country.
But as you know, Professor Gulati, even GM cotton is controversial, contentious. It has been the subject of much debate, and there is a fear, as I repeat, you could call it an ideological fear that Indian farmers will lose out. That the moment we open our market, let's say dairying, New Zealand products, for example, if we open our markets, could come and flood our markets. Will Indian farmers lose out? This constant fear that small farmers in particular will lose out, that agriculture employs still over 46% of India's workforce, so it's a large political constituency. How does one tackle this, given that ultimately politicians will be very conscious of their vote banks?
You are now shifting the debate to New Zealand rather than US. They are two different stories. Here, US is going country by country and destroying the most favored nation treaty. Okay, so the WTO is literally buried all these conditions. Yes, we have 46% of our workforce employed in agriculture, and we are cautious. We are perhaps overcautious, and our duty structures are not very rational. Why are we then allowing edible oil imports at 10% duty and cotton at 0% in duty, and even pulses at almost negligible duty? Are they not farmers? Why are they exposed to competition of the world? These are lobbies within agriculture.
But how do we give me a win-win example with the United States, where we could then export our agriculture products successfully to the United States? Give me one example. I know, for example, shrimp exports.
That's what I'm
which have
saying.
been very successful from India. Is that an
Right.
example that you would give as to what we can do?
Our agriculture exports to US are $5.9 billion. Out of that, the biggest export item is shrimp, and that is going at 0 to 5% duty. If they put 50% duty on our shrimp exports will become zero. Are you ready to bear that loss? And the political consequences of that in Andhra Pradesh? So the issue is, if you are putting 50% duty, US will also have the right to put 50% duty. And in that case, you give up your $6 billion worth of exports to US.
So, Professor Gulati, then, given what you've said, am I right to conclude that in a bilateral trade agreement of this kind, your message is negotiate hard, negotiate very specifically, include agriculture in trade talks, possibly even get concessions from the United States in exchange in other sectors, high-tech equipment, energy imports, but don't entirely exclude agriculture? Am I right? Don't, in a way, fall for an ideological tack on this issue.
That's right, that agriculture is not insulated from the economy, and we are importing overall $37 billion worth of agriculture imports. and from US we are importing only $2 billion worth of agriculture imports. Okay, so if that, and we are exporting about 5.9, so we have a huge surplus within agriculture, and overall export also we have a surplus. If we don't open any sector and we are too rigid, then we risk losing the big export of $50 billion.
Am I right though, Professor Gulati, at the same time, we could also offer, from what you're saying, lower duties maybe on a variety of our imports, whether it be, say, whiskey, even agriculture, some dairying products, cheese, walnuts, cranberries, and put import quotas on certain other key areas, sensitive agri products. Remember, the US's interest, Professor, is more in soya and corn, both GM. So you make distinctions within agriculture sector, go product by product, products where we could put import quotas, safeguard our farmers, and where we don't. Is that the way forward now?
Corn is very simple, that you say, okay, it will go only for ethanol, it will not go into the food chain. And if it is price competitive, the ethanol industry can import it. You can put some quota. So
Sir,
tariff rate quotas.
But the truth, sir, if I may just interrupt you, the sugar lobby in India will never accept that. They will never accept that we should import corn for ethanol purposes. If you say import corn for ethanol, the sugar lobby will go up in arms. That's the problem with agriculture, isn't it? All these politically influential lobbies like the sugar lobby.
Well, you want to go by lobbies, then you lose your $50 billion worth of other exports of textiles and gems and jewelry and shrimps and leather goods. You want to risk that? So question is $5 billion imports versus
what you're
$50 billion
saying is very
worth of exports.
right. So what you're saying is very interesting, Professor Gulati. You're saying we can easily negotiate hard with the Americans, possibly in the next round, without going into it with any closed mind about any products, including agriculture and dairying. Am I right?
Yes, very much. Trade is always give and take, and both sides have to come to some compromises.
Right, but as you know, sir, that's going to be very difficult because we found, particularly in agriculture, even with the farm laws, the moment you mention agriculture, politicians take strong, rigid positions. Even Prime Minister Modi has taken a position that I will never compromise the interests of India's farmers. The opposition will target him in the process if he makes any kind of deal on agriculture. You, better than anyone else, Professor Gulati, will know that agriculture is a politically volatile hot potato.
Yes, it is politically volatile, and if they want self-sufficiency in agriculture, first thing they should do is stop all the imports of edible oils, which are $17 billion. 55 to 60% of your consumption of edible oil is being imported. Why are you importing that? Are the farmers of oilseeds not important? So this hypocrisy should not be a part of the negotiation. Trade negotiations are give and take.
Professor Gulati, as always, a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for enlightening us.